in a world that's become so very transactional,
Yeah.
I really think that we hold the keys to something that's very special here at Triangle, because we do still value those relationships, and they are important. They are very important. So, I'm really, I'm glad to hear that that's something that you were able to pull from her. We are sitting here in masks, and we are in the middle of a pandemic still, unfortunately, and COVID's obviously presented a whole lot of challenges. From a supply chain standpoint, having vendors be closed at points, or having vendors be limited because they don't have as much production, or anything else that you've experienced along the way. What has it been like over the course of the last almost year now, in regard to having to navigate at very uncertain times?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster. The risks have changed throughout this past year. In the very beginning, when we were in March of last year, a lot of the threats that was towards our supply chain was coming from governmental action, and obviously they're trying to keep everyone safe, but from a supply chain standpoint, we were trying to figure out, are different counties, different states closing the doors of the businesses that we do business with. Triangle is considered an essential business. We didn't know exactly if all of our suppliers were going to be considered essential as well. So in the very beginning, we were trying to gather as much information as possible from everyone that we had some open business with. Reached out to all of our different buyers across the company. Reached out to all the different suppliers and tried to get a quick survey of, are you open? Is there a plan that you're going to close or you're going to need to close? So in the very beginning, it was very much the government's response to the pandemic. Is that going to have, any effect on our suppliers, us getting what we need and being able to supply our customers? And it turned out not to be that disruptive in the beginning. It was a lot of information, no one knew what was happening. But once we got all the information, we realized there was a few areas where there were some risks, but they all kind of, even themselves out, and we didn't really have many closures. And then going further into the pandemic and even to now, the risk turns more to some of our suppliers closing for good. Some of our suppliers haven't, been able to, either they haven't been able to weather the storm, or they just decided it wasn't worth it, or this was the right time for them to move on in their lives, and they sold the businesses or just decided to close down. So now there's more of the just constant talking to them and saying, how you doing? How's business? And I was trying to, see how they're weathering the storm the same as we're trying to.
Sure. Do you see ways that we as a client or a customer of theirs could be helping them in ways that we're currently not? I mean, are there things that we could be doing better as a company in that regard?
The only thing that we can really do from a responsible standpoint that's good for us and good for our suppliers is communicating. Giving them a view of what's business going to look like over the next couple of months. What business are we going to be able to give them? That's really what most of our suppliers have been asking for. It's just a view of the future, because the past 10 years before this happened, things were pretty steady, and they kind of knew this was the business I'm going to get, on average, every year. And now with the pandemic, some things could be up, some things could be down, and it's really what most of our suppliers were craving was information. So really tried to be as forthright, as honest with our suppliers, and say, here's what we see coming from our customers, here's what we see flowing down to you. That's probably the biggest thing that they needed from us. A couple of our suppliers, where we've had business pushed out, we've had to, push out taking things from our suppliers. So we've had to work with them and make sure that as much as we're trying to manage our inventory and push out some deliveries, we're also trying to make sure we're not leaving our suppliers in a lurch and them in a spot where they can't, continue to move their product. So, it's a lot of, discussion, talking, and making sure we find solutions that work for both, us and our suppliers.
And it's got to be a difficult conversation to have when we're not getting that same kind of information from a lot of our customers. So you're caught in the middle and saying, okay, well, I don't have the information that you're looking for, but still trying to give them the best information that you possibly can. It's got to be a difficult position to be in.
Absolutely. And again, that's, going back to relationships, that's where that pulls in, where, there's some trust on both sides. And by using that trust and just communicating as best we can, they know we're trying to do the best by them. And I think they're also trying to do the best by us.